Hey guys, good morning. Good morning. Hmm?
We bring in a friend who we've known for years and years and years. He's an author, relationship therapist, Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson.
Some expert advice on how we can all talk to them. Joining us now is relationship expert Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson. She's the author of Courageous Conversations Connect. Good morning, R.G.
Doctor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Janelle. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And as we mentioned, a lot of people just dealing with anxiety during all of this. What are your suggestions?
Some of the things that we need to remember is that this is temporary. This is temporary inconvenience for long-term gain. And as long as we stay healthy, Janelle, then everything else is recoverable.
Talk to your children about what's happening right now. What are the best ways to do that?
There's some do's and don'ts, right? So you want to tell them that you're going to be here. We're going to be okay. Kids want to know that they're secure and they're safe. So predictability, structure, and consistency. You also want to let them know you have a plan. And even if you don't have a plan, tell them that you're working on one, right?
To the commercial. Hey, good morning. Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. RG, and you're here for the Courageous Conversations Connect space where we're having our quarantine talk. So welcome. I am excited on this Tuesday morning for you guys to be here. And we have our IG family, we have our Facebook family, we have our YouTube family, and we are going to have a great quarantine talk. So thank you for joining us. We're going to take a quick break, right? We're going to, just go to our sponsors, and then we'll come right back. So stay with us. Okay. I thought you were going to go. Yeah. Oh, so our sponsors are, our new sponsors are Deanna, Nicole Murray, and Brian Murray. And so I just wanted to give you guys a little tidbit about them. So if you see our logos or our book covers, Deanna is responsible for all of that. She's an amazing graphic designer, and her husband, Brian Murray, is an accountant, and he has his own business called Blueprint. If you guys ever want to check them out, you can reach Deanna at 484-238-0890. She is, or you can just go to her website, DeannaNicole.com. And Brian is the owner and proprietor of Blueprint Financial Empowerment, LLC. You can reach him at brian@blueforfinance.com. So check them out. They're amazing. They do a whole bunch of other things. Actually, they have a Hustle and Flow online platform that you can go on and register and participate in for entrepreneurs. And they also have an entity called Barren Fruit that is specifically for women who have infertility issues. So they're doing a whole bunch of stuff. And if any of that resonates with you, then give them a call. They are our new sponsors in addition to our other sponsors. So check them out. Oh, all right. I thought. Okay. No, I do have my coffee, but you know what? I was thinking that Morgan was going to run the clip of the other sponsors as well. So I apologize, guys. Bear with us. We are, I did wake up a little bit like foggy in the head. So y'all have to work with me, work with me, laugh with me, pray with me if you can. But anyway, I appreciate you guys being here. Deborah's here, Gloria, Megan, China, I see you. I see Mama Scotes. Thanks for joining. Nicole with the K. Charles. Yeah, Mama Scotes. And Charla is here. Webb and Onita is here. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but thank you for joining. And I'm not sure who is here with our IG family, but I thank you for joining as well. We are, this is our, believe it or not, this is our 26th day of doing this. It seems like when we give ourselves a little bit of break on the weekends, but we're in our week 7 of quarantine for the whole country, basically. Philadelphia, I think, and Pennsylvania is week 6. And they're talking about gradually opening up the country again. We'll see what that looks like. But at the end of the day, we all have to be safe. And whatever that looks like for you, for your family, you need to make some good choices about that, as we all do. This is not, as many people have said, this is not just about protecting yourself, but this is about protecting other people. we're really in this together. We saw that. I mean, many of us have probably say guilty of looking at China and Italy and saying, oh, that's way over there. And it was only weeks where this little virus that we can't even see, this enemy, if you will, has traveled through people to the other side of the world, i.e. the US, and infected people. And I think that they hit the mark of over 50,000 people that have died, and many more impacted and affected by this virus. So, that being said, we have to all do our part at the end of the day. And so we start this quarantine talks out with breathing. So if you all can do some thumbs up, some smiley faces, some hearts, that helps with the algorithms. If those of you on IG want to see, the other platforms, certainly we encourage you and invite you to go over to the YouTube page. We all want you to subscribe and let your friends know to subscribe our YouTube page and hit the notification button so that you can get notifications of all of the different things that we're doing in terms of content. Morgan is doing a great job of producing, and we're working on more and more content for you guys in addition to the quarantine talks. I also just wanted to give you a heads up that the city is doing an event tomorrow at 11 o'clock. It's on my Facebook page, and it's called A Time to Grieve. And they're going to have some wonderful people, including myself, as panelists for an hour and a half talking about the grieving process. Many people of faith, there's some politicians there, it's the clinicians there on that platform, and it is being moderated by Naomi Leapart Williams, I believe. I can't remember her last name, but it's a hyphen. And so it'll be good. So that's what we're doing on Wednesday. So we encourage you to come on to Quarantine Talks and then transition with us at 11 o'clock to the Time to Grieve platform. So, all right, we are going to get into our breathing. And please, as we always do in the morning, tell me, guys, who are you breathing for? I want to breathe for the essential workers out there. You all know who they are. Those are the people that they are not afforded the same opportunity that we are to be able to work from home or be at home. They have to go out into the element. They are vulnerable in many ways because they're putting themselves in harm's way. I think I posted something this morning about these two Black doctors that are twins. They're identical twins. They went to Temple and then they went to, I think, Penn State. And they are helping Dr. Alana A.L.S. Stanford and the war, really, quite frankly, against the Black and brown community with regards to this virus. So they're going out to churches and to different organizations every other day throughout the week, and they're doing testing. So I thought that was awesome. Shout out to them. So I'm going to keep them in prayer, and I hope that you will too. And I'm breathing for them. We're going to breathe in oxygen. Of course, we breathe out carbon dioxide, but we also breathe in much more. We breathe in hope. We breathe in courage. We breathe in serenity. We breathe in peace of mind, if you will. We breathe in contentment. Many of us are anxious, and contentment is not something that, quite frankly, many of us have felt like we had over the last 6 or 7 weeks. So we're breathing that in, and we're breathing out worry and breathing out fear. We're breathing out disappointment, discouragement. We're breathing out those things. And once we do our breathing, so you guys tell me who you're breathing for today, in addition to yourself. And we're also breathing for those people that are in the hospitals that can't breathe for themselves. And after that, we're going to get into our conversation about purging. And I got a funny for you. But I'm gonna hold you. I'm gonna hold hold that for a little bit later. But we're going to be talking about purging and letting go of unrealistic expectations. My cousin Shelly was on yesterday, and she was talking about that she was trying to let go of unrealistic expectations or expectations of people. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in this conversation. So I want you to think about what that means to you. So we have Deborah on. Good morning, Deborah, as well. Megan, good morning. Dominique is on. Good morning, you guys. I didn't see the comment. Where is it at? I can't,
I ignore it. It says breathing for stress relationship. Can you see that?
Oh, Gloria says breathing for stress relationships. Okay, I see it. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Clyde. He said, good morning, family. Thanks, Dr. RG, for your encouragement and wisdom. Well, thank you, Clyde. Thank you for being here. This is the thing that gives Morgan and I energy, doing this every morning. And we continue to do this to feel the energy of our crew, connecting relationships for epic wins. All right, so let's get into our breathing posture. As we're doing that, if those of you, good morning, Billy Joe. Billy Joe is on too. As you are getting into the breathing posture, you know what we do. Thumbs, middle finger and a thumb, this position, or your hands on your side, back erect and straight. Do a little wiggle to get comfortable. We're going to breathe in through our nose and we're going to breathe out through our mouth. Try to clear my throat. This is post-nasal drip. So breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. Dominique says breathing for medical students, the future health workers, our education is disrupted. Gotcha. Let's breathe in for those because they absolutely, we need you guys out there doing this work as even beyond this pandemic, quite frankly. In Monica Davis, I can't pronounce the first name, but she says, good morning, Monica. So let's breathe in. Let's do our exercises. This is also expanding the lung capacity and doing the exercise to build up our lung muscle. So at the sound of my voice, when I count to 3, we're going to breathe in through the nose. We're going to hold it for 10 seconds, and then we're going to breathe out. We'll do that 5 times. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. And breathe out. Nice. Breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And out. Breathe in. Nice. Big breath. And breathe out. Last time. Make it count, guys. Breathe in through the nose. Woo, that was good. That felt good, right? That felt very good. I wanted to start our conversation. You all know I use sometimes different books. It's called Jesus Calling by Sarah Young. And it is, anybody want IG?
Some BL 1397. What's up, cousin? Who's BL?
Oh, my cousin, Brandon Allen.
Oh,
yeah.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Uh-huh.
Okay, he going.
Hey, cousin.
And somebody, Shannon _Lori is on. Howie Kell 61 is on, just joined. So, yep.
Okay.
Dr. Kiwanora. I don't know who that is.
Okay.
Anyway.
Good morning, IG family. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Facebook family, YouTube family. So I'm going to be reading from here. This is our reading for the day. This is April 28th. So it's actually on the day. I read this every day, but I don't always read it for you. But I thought this was very appropriate from the perspective of letting go of unrealistic expectations. And then what are we holding on to? So it says, as you look into the day that stretches out before you, you see many choice points along the way. We're going to talk about your choice points, right? The myriad of possibilities these choices present can confuse you. Draw your mind back to the threshold of this day, where I stand beside you, lovingly preparing you for what is ahead. You must make your choices one at a time, since each is contingent upon the decision that precedes it. Instead of trying to create a mental map of your path through this day, focus on my loving presence with you. I will equip you as you go so that you can handle whatever comes your way. Trust me to supply what you need when you need it. I think that that's awesome. That really spoke to me in reference to choice points, right? I'm wondering what your own personal choice points are. And I'm also wondering if any of you out there have gotten very frustrated with having expectations of people and then disrupt your day because you're expecting them to make better choices for themselves or make better choices for your family, and they're not doing it. Maybe they're not following the protocols that have been agreed to in your household, and it can be uncomfortable, right? And I think that sometimes we get very tripped up when we are, resisting in some ways what people are presenting. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should accept everything that people present, because sometimes it's, quite frankly, some foolishness. Sometimes it really does not help ourselves or our family to get caught up in what other people are doing that is not in accordance to what your path is. However, when we think about choice points, I'm curious to know, what are the choices that you feel like you've made, choice points that have helped you to move forward in this pandemic? And quite frankly, what are the choice points maybe that you have made that were not helpful to you? Because we not only have sometimes unrealistic expectations of other people, sometimes we have unrealistic expectations of ourselves, and we need to then forgive ourselves, which is what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. We need to forgive ourselves for whatever it is that we've done that has not necessarily served us very well, so that we can recalibrate and move forward. And so I think that a lot of tension, a lot of resistance comes from unrealistic expectations of others and, quite frankly, of ourselves. So there's some things that we can actually do to help us to start letting go. So all this week, we're talking about purging. Why? Purging is important for a number of different things. I talked yesterday about clutter, right? What are you laughing about? My husband's laughing at me. He likes to laugh at me, but I don't know why. He says I'm a funny bird. Y'all going to know all the little names that he calls me. A funny bird. He calls me secret squirrel. What else you call me, babe? He calls me a lot of different things. He has a lot of pet names for me. I don't really have as many pet names for him. Ruth Ann's on. She says, I analyze things I do and say after the fact. Got you. And Brandon's on as well. Sometimes we do overanalyze things as well. So I think Morgan is laughing because I told you I was going to share something with you. So guess what, guys? In terms of purging and talking about okay, so unrealistic expectations. So I'm going to show you. Yesterday, I showed you my crutch, right? And we were talking about letting go of like crutches. And so this was like a physical prop that I had found in my office that I was cleaning out that had been just totally demolished many, many years ago when I really didn't create the space that I needed to ahead of time. How many of you are guilty of that? Sometimes you want something in your life, but you don't create the physical space or the emotional space or the spiritual space for that thing. So that's kind of what happened to me. I didn't have the time to create the space. So I threw everything into one room and there it stayed. And so now that I'm home 24/7, I'm like, I'm going to purge this room. I'm going to get rid of things. And I'm going to create a serene space for me to work in addition to the space that I already am in. And so I found these crutches. And Morgan insisted that I throw the crutches out because he was saying that there's no need for me to continue to keep these unnecessary things. And I told you guys, I'm a little bit of a secret hoarder. I'm an organized hoarder, right? I am. And Dominique said that that's okay. She was on my side. It's called a reframe. It's called a positive reframe. So I'm organized. Alternative facts, right? So anyway, my point is I got I had this one crutch. So what happened was I found I found them at different times in the room. So Morgan insisted that it had to go into the trash. And then I found the other one and I was like, darn, I was like, now I want the mate to it, but he had already thrown it out. So he had to go get it for me. And so now I have two crutches. So
explain the whole story. It was about your fan.
I'll tell him. So I won.
And bullied me into going out and getting this extra crutch, and I got to go out.
Well,
because it was debate on whether or not
I would tell them, babe. So I'm gonna give you guys the name that you all gave Morgan is y'all. He calls me environment bullying. I think that Morgan became the environment bully yesterday with you guys because we did a debate and everyone determined they were pretty much on my side that it was not a problem to keep crutches for the possibility down the line that something should happen. I don't want to.
Dominique, you my girl.
What did Dominique say?
She's my girl.
I still say get rid of the crutches though. Dominique, why? Why do we need to? Why should we get rid of the crutches? Morgan, let it go. Mama Scope said, Morgan, let it go.
Wait a minute.
She's on my side. She's on my side.
I did let it go. I brought back the other crutch. I pulled it out of the trash heap. Okay.
Actually, it's broken though because it doesn't have the middle part. He has to find the middle part for me.
Anyway.
So anyway, that's just a little funny for us, just to keep it light. I'm going to keep the crutches, even though Dominique says don't keep them. But I know that sometimes these insurance companies, if something should happen, they charge you for this equipment. I still don't have my boot. I let that go. I really did let that go because I'm not going to have Morgan digging through the trash for the boot. But Ruth here says, let it go, let it go. Be like Elsie, let it go. But the reason why I even thought yesterday to talk about the crutch is because sometimes we can have, metaphorically speaking, we can have emotional crutches. We can have, so yes, I have these physical crutches and I want to keep them for a time when I could possibly need them. I am a little clumsy around the house as well. But what emotional crutches do you guys have? How have you used those crutches in some ways to justify your own actions? There are emotional crutches that many of us have. Sometimes we talk about being in the midst of a pandemic and that's why we are, not functioning so well. Well, many of us are anxious and many of us are worried. We have some fears of the unknown. That's understandable. But that should not be a prerequisite, or that should not be a justification, I should say, for, let's say, being not so kind. Sometimes we will use anger as a crutch to justify our actions and justify the things that we say. Just because we're having this crisis does not give us a license to harm or hurt people, to use perhaps even our issues, if you will, as a crutch to hurt somebody else. Work on them. Put the work in. This is what I always say. Like, we don't have to stay, or Morgan will say, stay stuck on stupid. I don't like the word stupid, so I don't use that term, but he says that. And, the metaphorically speaking, it's correct. When we think about staying stuck in places, sometimes that stuckness will keep us from moving forward because we're using certain things as a crutch. Sometimes we use our past as a crutch. Well, I didn't do this, so then I can't do that. Well, that's also not helpful. If you're thinking about moving forward, but you're telling yourself you can't because you didn't go to school, or you didn't write that book, or you didn't start early enough, or it's too late for me to move forward. Well, I don't believe that. I think the only true failure is never to try at all. And we've been given this wonderful opportunity called a purposeful pause, where the whole country has gotten shut down for several months in order for us to regroup, restore, recalibrate, begin to envision what it is that you want to do and stop using it as a crutch or having unrealistic expectations. Oh, Billy Joe says, keeping old text messages to validate what you once felt and hold on to memories. You can read them anytime instead of letting go of the past. Oh, that's an interesting concept. I mean, I think if it's helpful to hold on to something like that, an old text message that reminds you of a memory, that's like looking at pictures and really embracing where you were and, you know, who you spent quality time with. So I like that concept. I'll be honest with you. I still have, I have the voicemail of my mother on her phone, so I can actually call and hear her voice. And I don't plan on ever getting rid of it because I enjoy every once in a while hearing my mother's voice, since I can't hear it physically anymore or audibly because she's no longer here with us. So I think that that's perfectly fine for us to do something like that. But I also want to hear from you guys. What is it that you really do need to purge? Like for me, it's the room, right? And I'm still working on letting things go. Are you letting go? We're talking about expectations. Do you have unrealistic expectations of yourself? Do you put exorbitant amounts of pressure on yourself to do too many things? I do know that before we got into this quarantine together, I think many people were putting themselves under enormous pressure to get too many things done. We had become a cancel culture in some ways, but we had become an over-functioning culture in other ways, meaning that we were putting so much pressure to get everything done, not taking proper breaks, not giving ourselves boundaries in terms of work, beginning and end, not eating properly or hydrating properly. Then we were actually, in many cases, and I work with families every day, that were actually doing that to your children, meaning that they were overscheduled too. There was never a rest time in the middle of the day, you know, and I know Kobe Bryant says rest at the end, not in the middle, right? I understand that in terms of accomplishing a goal, but at the same time, how do you think about processing or pacing yourself along the way so that you're healthier when you get to the finish line? That's ultimately the goal, right? So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back. We're going to take a break for our sponsors. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Not to clear my throat when it's like in the back. Hey, I didn't realize you guys were there. All right, well, welcome back. We took a quick break for our sponsors. Let me know. And I asked you the question of, you know, is there an expectation that you've set for yourself that was not good? Is there an expectation that you've set for others? I think that's the bigger one sometimes, where we set these expectations for other people and they have no knowledge of it, or they may have knowledge of it and they're just unable to honor that expectation. And then that can frustrate us. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Ruth Ann said, I felt like I had to do everything before I went to bed. Interesting. Ruth Ann, you know, Ruth Ann's from Florida. Tell us how the weather is in Florida. I'm sure it's pretty nice. I sometimes feel that way too. And interesting enough, when I used to work at Drexel, I would do this. I would take so much stuff to work, right? Get as much as I could get done, and then bring that bag of things home with me with the hopes that I could do even more work at home, and then go to bed and do it all over again. And I just found like that was not a healthy way. If anything, if there's anything that we learned from this quarantine, is that you need to build in your breaks. You need to have a beginning and a middle and an end to your day, to your work day. And you need to bookend that with ways to wind down, like meditation, like prayer, mindfulness, to put you in a different mood, to get your proper rest in order to, you know, perform at the optimal level the next day. I don't think that we do that. What happened is that we blurred everything. Everything kind of got blurred together in our work day. So work was home and home was work, and the kids were running and the parents were running, and none of us really took time out to exhale. And by the way, that does not help your immune system. If everyone is so busy running, rest is restorative, sleep is restorative, drinking water is restorative so that we get hydrated. So all those things are extremely important for us when we think about how it is that we're moving through our day. The unrealistic expectations. Does anybody have a time, within the 7 weeks where they were able to let go of unrealistic expectations of someone else? Because I think that that's really, really key. Oftentimes, as I said, we get tripped up because we think people should do what we want them to do, how we want them to do it. And when they don't, we get disappointed. And what I've learned is that sometimes we have to step back and recognize that we don't have that much power. That at the end of the day, we don't even have the complete power over our own selves, but we have more power to make changes within our own selves, mind, body, and spirit, than we do someone else. And that's where the rub comes, or that's where the resistance is, because we want our kids or our parents or our friends to follow suit, that we can all make these good decisions together. Your choice points, as the reading said, but you have some control over your choices. You don't have control over other people's choices. And unfortunately, we're in these times with this pandemic and this virus where other people's choices can impact us. So how do you mitigate that, right? Unfortunately, you may have to make some decisions to create distance, social distancing or physical distancing, maybe even some emotional distancing from people who are not making good choices that could potentially impact you or your family or your home, right? And sometimes we don't want to do that. We don't want to, someone said yesterday, set appropriate boundaries. So I've seen, in fact, I did an interview last week on a story of someone, a family who didn't set good boundaries. I guess just because they didn't want to say no, or they felt like they were going to look bad if they said this person couldn't come in. So they invited a relative of a kid, of one of their children, into their home, who then was positive and then infected the whole entire family. Because the problem is with COVID-19, you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. As a matter of fact, for some people, it says it takes away the taste buds, and the smell, the sense of smell. But the bottom line is that if we can't see this, then we have to do these other things to mitigate that. And that's just with the virus. But I think the virus and this pandemic has taught us that there are other things that we can do to keep ourselves healthy, to keep ourselves safe, and to let go of things that don't serve us very well, which is really hard to do. Especially if you've lived your life. I don't know how many people on this show today are people pleasers. I have a section in my book that talks about the disease to please. And sometimes that creates much problems if we're trying to please everyone else. So ask a question, if you can, about if there is a scenario that is bothersome to you, if there's a scenario that has kept you stuck in wanting someone to make a different choice than you would think that they should be making. Let me know if there is a scenario that's playing out in your life that has to do with you having unrealistic expectations, both of yourself or of someone else. We want to hear those particular questions. As a family therapist for many, many years, what I find is that sometimes we tend to talk to the wrong people when we're having stress, family stress, when we're having difficulty understanding why people do what they do. Sometimes when we're having challenges of even understanding ourselves. So purging is very much connected to even people, right? I've said this, I know many of you have heard me say this, that sometimes we keep people in our lives way past their expiration date. Well, we keep people, we keep things, we keep situations in our head. We keep negative thoughts. There's a lot of things that we keep in our heads way past their expiration date. There's no free rent. The only place I know that there's a free rent is in your head. So, I used to say to my dad, don't keep people in your head for free rent. Don't keep people longer than they need to be in your head. And so what are your thoughts about that? I don't know, understand. Morgan's trying to send me a message. I'm trying to read it and I don't understand what he's saying. So he's going to have to tell me what it is. Or we're going to have to go over that before we transition the next time. I just don't understand what he's saying. So tell me if you guys have a question, you have any thoughts about letting go. Tell me if the ways in which you have let go of unrealistic expectations has been helpful to you. I mean, this whole process of quarantine talks is about processing so that we can get better. Because too many people have been stuck, or at least they tell me that they've been stuck, that does not allow them to move forward. And this goal is about moving forward. Charlotte says, that is so true. What do you mean? What do you mean, Charla? What part of what I said? I was talking for a while. What part is true that resonates with you? When we think about letting go, and this is why we're doing this whole segment on purging, I don't think that I'm the only one that doesn't purge very well. I think there's probably a lot of us out there that has kept clutter in our lives for way too long, whether it's in our physical space, whether it's in our emotional space, whether it's in our spiritual space or our relational space. Where are you cluttered that you need to begin to purge? Karen says, I agree. However, it's hard sometimes, especially when they keep popping up. What is the they? Question for Karen. Is it they the people or is it they the messaging? Megan says, my therapist would always say, all you can do is plant the seeds. I used to struggle because I wanted to plant and water and watch, and that doesn't work. Very, very true, Megan. Planting the seeds can be really, really helpful in terms of letting go. So you plant the seed, then you got it. You've given the gift already. Now it's really up to people what they do with it, right? Sometimes it's thinking about, if I'm going to give a gift, would I take that gift back, or would I want that to watch that person use that gift every time? And some people do. They're watching to see whether or not you wear the gift or whether you like the gift or what have you. But really, gifts are meant to just be given. And once you give them, that's it. You're done. You've given it. It's up to them to utilize it, to do what they want with it. And sometimes the gift is a gift of information. You might say to somebody, here's what I do in this situation. Here's what I've been doing. Now it's out there in the universe for whatever people want to do with it. If they choose to not take that information and use it to their benefit, that's their choice. You then have to let go of your expectation that they will use that information to their benefit. That is very, very hard, as Megan was talking about, as Karen was speaking of. Very, very, very hard to do, to give something away and then let it be where it is, especially if it's information. And how hard is it, guys, sometimes to watch the train wreck? That's sometimes what happens when you give information or you think that you're sharing something that's helpful to somebody, and then, they choose not to take that information. They choose not to use it, and they continue to make their poor choice points, if you will. Then sometimes you have to sit back and let it go, let it be. Karen says, people, when she's talking about it's hard because they keep popping up. She's specifically talking about people and being a Christian. I do my best to communicate with love, but the information gets misunderstood because I'm saying it kindly. Interesting.
Sometimes you got to go right to the point. You can't worry about people's feelings.
Well, this is interesting because I say Morgan and I have a very different perspective on how to disseminate information. I say that Morgan takes his bat out and hits people over the head with information. And I don't like blunt force trauma is what he calls, I guess, therapeutic. For me, it's metaphor. He says sometimes shock therapy works. I disagree. But he is different than I am. I don't believe, I'm a therapist. I don't believe in re-injuring people. And I know.
But sometimes you just can't escape.
So Morgan and I have a different, y'all know we are very, very different. And he just has a different way of disseminating information. For me, I disseminate information like I don't feel compelled to yell, or I don't feel compelled to push the person to do what I think that they should do. I give them the information, and it's really up to them, because they're, especially for adults, I'm not talking about for children. It's really up to them whether they choose to take that information or not. And I do think that there are some people that perhaps don't get it the first or second time. So an approach can be being persistent and consistent. That also is important for us to think about. Where did we receive information from people that were trying to share it with us early on in the very beginning? So a little bit of patience can go a long way as well. Ruth Ann says, I made homemade sanitizer and it was never used. It annoyed me because I took the time because I asked, and then they never used it. Got you. We could have used that homemade sanitizer, Ruth Ann. Yeah, those are the kind of things that really can be annoying. I know that Morgan and I, in the very beginning, had our mask. We had all of the products that we needed, and we went around sharing that, not just information. We actually shared the items with our family members. We hope that they used it. All we could do is say, listen, this is serious. We're taking it seriously. Here you go. It's up to you what you do with it. The problem is that sometimes when people don't take these gifts that we're giving them into consideration, and then they end up potentially getting sick, then now they may be looking for you to help them. And that's problematic. Okay. Aaron says, I used to use a bat, which worked really well. All right. Well, you've got somebody that agrees with you, Morgan, in terms of, blunt force trauma and I'm not talking, I'm speaking metaphorically. I'm for those of you, because I do recognize in all sensitivity that the domestic violence rates have gone up since we've been in quarantine. So when I talk about that, I'm talking about just words and being a little bit more assertive and aggressive with what you want for people. And sometimes that works for people to be more assertive and aggressive, and other people, you just have to give them the information and then you have to let it go. You have to not be as invested in the outcome. Your goal is to give the information, try to help as best you can. And then whatever happens, maybe down the line, they will receive it. And Ruth Ann says, absolutely. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Now, the way it works is, this shows some love to IG. Allison is on. Dr. Kiranora, I believe. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Doc.
Hey, Allison.
So Allison says, yeah, North Philly style. Okay.
North Philly style. Yeah.
I'll go West Philly.
Yeah.
And Chocolate Teddy says, sometimes people need bluntness to get the message. I know it's not my style.
Yeah.
It's okay. Everybody has a different way of doing it. It's not always the case. You don't always have to hit them across the head. And your way is beautiful.
Thank you, babe. I do believe that sometimes people do need some more assertive engagement, if you will. And maybe we do as well. I don't ever want to be in an environment or with people who won't tell me the truth. As my grandmother said, though, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so for me, I receive the truth if you give it to me in love and, be a little gentle, if you will. Dominique says, I think it depends on your relationship with the person. Okay. I need a bat to be thrown at me. And that's how I used to give it. But I realized that I can't because it's not received well. Right. And again, I want to underscore when we're talking about that, because I started that commentary about the bat, we're not talking about physically harming anyone with our hands or with objects. I think I need to say that just so that, because this stuff lives out there in the, in cyberspace. We're talking about just metaphorically speaking with words. Some people need to be, have more direct content shared with them. Sometimes they need someone to be a little bit more serious and more assertive, if you will. And other people need the messaging to be a little bit softer in order for them to actually receive it. So Dominique is absolutely right. Know your audience, know who you're dealing with, know what you need, right? Sometimes you may say to your partner or your accountability person, like, just give it to me straight, tell me what you think. And then I can then make a decision from there. And from other people, not so much. They need a little bit of a side door inquiry or information. Megan says we have to communicate the language that the receiver speaks. However, the yelling is really rooted in trauma. I grew up with yelling parents, and I vowed to never have that type of communication with anyone. I agree with you, Megan. Absolutely, that sometimes that is a sort of root to this whole yelling. I didn't grow up in a home where there was a lot of yelling. We'll maybe have a conversation about that at some point with regards to your family of origin, because a lot of times what we experience in our past absolutely is directly correlated with what we are experiencing in our present. And so if you grew up with a lot of yelling and discourse and dissension and confusion, and oftentimes you will bring that into your adult relationships, or you, like Megan, will say, okay, that was not healthy for me, so therefore I'm going to find another way to communicate with my family or with my children or what have you. Now, I will say it sometimes depends on the circumstances, because we're in quarantine. This is 7 weeks, right? So now we're having to find innovative and creative ways to manage both our anxiety, our fear, even our anger and our frustration, because it's not a problem to feel it. It's a problem if you don't find ways to deal with it, right? Mm-hmm.
You and I had,
and we're going to be transitioning soon, I guess,
so
right?
We've had this debate a few times in the past about sports and athletics. Okay, so for example, a coach, most coaches in sports, to get a person's attention, to get them to move, to do what you need to do in the moment, many coaches yell. So I'm asking you to kind of talk about, how do you think not yelling to do injury, but in athletics, I don't know a coach that doesn't yell. That doesn't exist in real high level sports and coaching. So what do you think about that? Just curious.
I think that coaching is a little bit different. That's a whole culture in and of itself. So I was really talking more about our intimate relationships with our family, our friends, our coworkers, things like that. I think coaching is different. And I do recognize that, there's a level of aggression that you need to kind of get people to pay attention to, and, you're guiding them and you're coaching them. But then there's also multiple kinds of coaching as well. So with athletics, I absolutely get that. Maybe perhaps that's why I wasn't, an athlete. That's a very real possibility. Although I never had that experience with coaching, I do understand that there's a whole different culture there. Megan says, I grew up playing sports too. College was very traumatic because of the verbal and emotional abuse. Coaches need anger management and emotional regulation coaching. Laugh out loud. Well, I agree to that too. I think wait a minute. I think there's a both and to that, right? I think that there are some coaches that are extremely good. And I think that they need to, it's a temperament. It's sort of kind of modulating what you can do and then how you do it. And then quite frankly, I work with a lot of clients that are athletes. They're young people, and some people respond very well to some of that level of aggression, and some people do not. I'm just a proponent that I think you can find alternative ways to get that messaging across that are not harmful and hurtful and certainly not abusive. So that's just my take on it. I think that's a whole different conversation that we're kind of going down a rabbit hole around. Barry says, as an educator and coach, I've learned to do a quick study of my students and athletes to know how to best communicate and what positive impact to have on them. Awesome. I think that that's for any coach, for any teacher to learn the mechanisms of that student. How can they, how are they best able to receive that information? Ruth Ann says, my supervisor would scream at people and get away with it. And I felt that he was mentally abusive of myself and others. And I don't believe that any of us should ever stay in a situation that is abusive. I don't believe that. I don't believe for loyalty. I don't believe for legacy. I don't believe for longevity. For any of those things should we have to stay in those situations, nor do I believe that it's a healthy scenario. So if anyone's in that situation in a workplace or in a home life or in their friendships, they need to reevaluate and be able, try to figure out how to extricate themselves. Although I recognize that that can be really difficult as well. Brandon, my cousin Brandon says, as a coach, you have to know your players. Some players don't respond to yelling. It's about getting the best out of the player. Absolutely. And then some do. I would never respond to it. It doesn't work for me. But I do think that, we need to temper it and we need to draw a line, right? Is it like, just elevating your voice to get the best out of a person, but then have you cross the line as a coach when you're posturing with this angry gesture or maybe using profanity and those kinds of things? That's where I take issue with it. So we shifted gears in terms of the conversation that we were having as far as letting go of and purging, but letting go. But there's some correlation in terms of the expectation. This is for the IG family, Facebook family, YouTube family. Unrealistic what are your expectations? And do you have unrealistic expectations? I think that's ultimately the key. By the way, I forgot to say this, but I wanted to show you guys my shirt. It says vote. There's early voting, and I'm encouraging everybody, and we'll post this, I'm encouraging everybody to go on the website and I'll have it for you to, if you have not done it already, sign up for the early mail-in voting so that you can have your voice heard. If never before, we need to be able to vote to get people in that will make good decisions with regards to policy for the people in our community. And if you don't do it, that's problematic. I do think that they will have the availability to go there, but we don't know what this virus is going to do. So we want people to be able to vote. That's very, very important. We'll post where people, at least in Pennsylvania, can go to the link. It's pretty easy. Takes them maybe less than 5 minutes, and then they'll send you the application and or the process, and then you can send in your vote. I think that the voting is in June, so we have a little bit of time, but you cannot send it in late, otherwise your vote will not count. So I think that's really, really important. Were there any other comments, Dave?
No, I just comment that Megan was like, she said I was wrong, and I tried to explain to her I wasn't advocating violence or anything negative. I was just giving them another point of view. That's all. It wasn't advocating.
Yeah. All right. So here's the deal, guys. As we talk about purging, what I'd like for you guys to do is really think about, are there specific areas of your life that you can continue to work on? This is our time to do the work necessary. I don't think we'll ever have a time, probably in our lifetime, prayerfully so, where we'll have this amount of time to kind of sit still, to think about where we're doing well. Also think about where we're not doing so well, right? And in terms of our purging, this is extremely important, because when we go through this, and we will get to the other side, and this too shall pass, we need to really think about, all right, well, what did I get accomplished? What did I purge out of my life? How am I creating positive energy, and how have I grown through this and developed to get to the other side? So think about your purging, think about what the unrealistic expectations are of yourself and others, and let's meet back here tomorrow at 10 o'clock. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Sure. All right, guys. So I hope you've enjoyed this conversation that we've had, this courageous conversation connect space where we have our quarantine talks. Join us every day, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m., where we're going to talk about lots of different things. But this week we're talking about purging. Actually, tomorrow we're going to be talking about forgiveness, which I think is a big topic that it takes a long time to unpack. But think about places where you have not forgiven, places where you still have work to do, and let's roll up our sleeves and do the work.
Hey, you know what? I was able to pull up the actual flyer for whoever lives in Philadelphia for the town hall. I want to put the flyer up, the information, so I'm going to put it up now. Just so you can see the flyer.
Okay. Okay.
You can talk about it.
All right. So.
You might not be able to see it.
Yeah, you probably can't see it, but this is for tomorrow. Right after the quarantine talks, we're going to transition to this town hall. They're calling it a town hall, but it's really a time to grieve. And we're going to have wonderful people on this panel discussion for an hour and a half. It's going to be moderated by Naomi Leapart. And forgive me, I'll say her last. She's married, so she has another name, a hyphen, but I just can't remember it right now. But she will be moderating this discussion, and it'll be talking about grieving. So I think it'll be really actually a nice correlation between the forgiveness piece that we're going to be talking about tomorrow and also about grieving, because, we do need to be grieving, and we are grieving many things, and we need to be doing it in a positive way. All right. So I'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I love you guys. There's nothing you can do about it. Have a beautiful day on purpose from my heart to yours.